So Sony has absolutely been on fire this year with lenses and cameras. From the A1 to the FX3 to the Sony A7S III, they just announced a 14mm G Master lens, which looks absolutely amazing. And as a creator, it's great to have options, and Sony is giving us a ton at this point. And over the past year, I'd say that 90% of the content that I've created here on the channel would be with the 24mm G Master lens. This is one of my favorite lenses, probably my favorite lens to use. 10% of the time I'm using it for photos and stuff like that out and about when I'm traveling. And if I had to take one lens with me everywhere that I went, it would be this 24mm G Master. However, over the past year, I've run into scenarios where I needed just a little bit more in terms of focal length, whether I'm down in the studio or outside shooting bangers for photos. I've caught myself at times needing a bit more for distance with my shots, so as soon as Sony announced a 35mm G Master, I had to jump on it. Now, in terms of specs, it's super identical to the 24mm f1.4. You have that same switch between your manual and autofocus with the same focus button above it. On the right side, you have your switch for choosing whether you want your aperture ring to click or not when adjusting through the 11 aperture blades ranging from 1.4 to f16. Both lenses have the same linear motors, both are lightweight and compact and can easily fit into your pocket. The build quality is fantastic. The lens is sealed against dust and moisture. It's super durable, and even with its lightweight design, it doesn't feel cheap whatsoever, sporting the same strong plastic outer shell like you get with the 24mm model. Now, one thing to keep in mind, and one gripe that I have, is that just like the 24mm G Master lens, you do get some focus breathing when you're up close at that lower aperture. So if you're at f1.4, f1.8, you get a lot of focus breathing just like you get with that 24mm lens, which isn't a huge deal for most people, but if you're trying to do product reviews and stuff like that, you will notice that focus breathing, and it does get quite annoying. If you're not doing product reviews and stuff like that and you're just out and about, you probably won't notice it as much, but I thought I should mention it. Now, the 35mm is slightly heavier than the 24mm, coming in at 524 grams, which in all honesty, compared to the other 35mm lenses out there, it's still super light. The Sigma 35 weighs over 660 grams and feels much bulkier than this lens. You also have Sony's older 35mm f1.8, which for me is a bit outdated at this point. It doesn't have nearly the same build quality as the G Master and definitely isn't as fast and crisp as the G Master, especially in terms of autofocus. Now, speaking of autofocus, the 35mm lens, it's almost instant. It's just like the 24mm G Master. The autofocus is super fast, it's super crisp, and I feel like both lenses are unparalleled by most of their competitors out there. The autofocus is super quiet, and it sports a minimum focusing distance of just over 10 inches. Most photographers consider the semi-wide angle view of the 35mm lens to be the most ideal and natural-looking street photography lens in the lineup. Now, another awesome feature with this lens is it has that same 67mm filter thread that you get with the Sony 24mm G Master, the 20mm G lens, so you don't have to buy a step-up ring, you don't have to buy multiple different ND filters for these lenses. The same ND filter will work for each lens, saving you time, money, and some space in your bag. Image quality definitely didn't disappoint either. Both the colors and the sharpness were very accurate. Sony did a fantastic job with this lens. Most wide-angle lenses do suffer from some distortion, but with the 35mm it was hardly recognizable. Same with the lighting fall off around the edges. Chromatic aberration was non-existent and hard to find even in the toughest conditions that had some bright sun. Same goes for lens flare. Even when directly pointed with whatever sun I could manage to snag, it looked clean with no hard flaring in any of the photos that I took. The bokeh was smooth and soft in pretty much every scenario I shot in. The bokeh balls did present some cat eye in the foreground of the photos, but was non-existent in the background. This isn't exactly Sony's fault. This pretty much happens with any wider angle lenses that have to bend lighting at extreme apertures to enter that wider field of view. Sharpness was also fantastic, even when taking photos with the 12 megapixel sensor that you get on the Sony A7S III. The lens is super sharp in the center and doesn't need to be stepped down much in terms of its f-stop to get a sharper image. You do notice a bit of sharpness diminishing when getting towards the outer rims of the photo, but in most cases, especially when uploading to social media, it's hardly recognizable. Look guys, I don't want to sound like a broken record out here, but there really isn't too much to not like about this lens. I mean, sure, it's $1,400, it is a bit pricey, but when you look at Nikon, when you look at Canon, their lenses that are 35mm f1.4 are $300 or $400 more expensive than this one. So you really can't complain about the price too much, especially what you get for that $1,400 price tag. If you love the 24mm G Master lens, you're absolutely gonna love this one. There's no doubt about it. Now, who do I recommend this lens to? Anyone doing travel and street photography, lifestyle and wedding videos and photos, this is a must in your camera bag. I feel like you guys can't go wrong with it. But I'm curious, as a creator, what are you guys using for your everyday lens? If you had to pick just one lens, what would you use? Let me know down below. Aside from that, if you want to pick up this lens or any of the other lenses that we covered in today's video, I will make sure to have everything linked down below for you guys. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you smash that like button for me and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in my next episode. Peace.